Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're giving you guys a review of the upcoming album from Exmortus titled Necrophony. So you heard that right. Upcoming album. The record label was kind enough to give us an early copy of this album to review. We are very, very thankful for that. And this band we've actually checked out before on the channel. We reviewed The Sound of Steel, which came out in 2018, and this is their first album since then.
Yeah.
For reference, he gave it a 7.5 and I gave it a 7.
So close to that toe tag territory.
Really close to toe tag. And I guess, I'll start by just explaining my first thoughts on this album, because we didn't do any kind of first impressions video for this album.
Yeah.
When I first put on this album, I was floored. I thought, what the heck is this? Oh my gosh, like this is awesome. Specifically one song, and it's funny because we both looked at the track list and you thought, oh, Storm of Strings, that's gonna be sick.
Yeah.
And then when that song came on, it just blew me away. Like, holy shit, he was right. That song is one of the best songs of the year, in my opinion. This song is an instrumental, which is not new to this band. They've done it before.
Yeah.
And the way it starts up and then just explodes into this monstrous guitar beast of a track. Mm-hmm. Blistering energy throughout the whole thing. You're thinking, oh my god. And the progressions, like the chord progressions that they go through, very heavily classical inspired. And this is comments that we had last time. Mm-hmm. For like that's what this band does. Like this band is a very classically inspired kind of death metal thrashy band, which is really, really cool because obviously you're going to see classical influences in a lot of different genres of music, let alone just in the scope of metal. But this band specifically derives from it, like with more
easily.
focus than other bands, and I think that's really cool. And that's more so on the unique side. Not many bands do it that close to classical music than just obviously it's a derivative. Yeah. So, one of the first notes that I made going throughout the week of listening to this album is that the bass tone is awesome, and it came really, really quickly just from the second track, which is Mask of Red Death. Like there, I could clearly hear the bass, and that's one thing I really like. A lot of the time in metal, it's really hard to pick out the bass because the guitars are tuned so low, they might as well be basses anyway.
Yeah.
So it's hard to pick it up, but when you get songs and music that does allow the bass to shine like that, it creates so much more for the album and the experience. You get a whole new level to appreciate.
Yeah.
And this bass tone is awesome, and it's interesting that I thought, it reminded me of the Steve Harris bass tone, which is ironic considering at the end of this album there is an Iron Maiden cover of Moonchild. And I know we don't count covers and bonus tracks towards our ratings, but I just want to say this cover is incredible.
Like if you didn't know it wasn't Iron Maiden, you'd think it was Iron Maiden.
Exactly.
Like vocally, it's so close.
I'm so impressed by this singer.
Yeah.
Like
the vocals are on point,
nailing Bruce Dickinson's voice. Like so impressive, and it makes me wish that there was more of that range and versatility on the rest of the album, because the rest of the album is just kind of just the scream that he does, which didn't necessarily bother me, but after hearing the cover I thought, fuck, where were the rest of the album?
Yeah, you have some range, use it.
And he did use it a little bit on the last album. I re-listened to The Sound of Steel, and it was there on I think 2 tracks, but it still wasn't that much, so still it's like, damn, I would have loved to hear that on the rest of this album, but the rest of this album is still really, really cool regardless. But one weird thing I kind of ran into is that Darkest of Nights is a cool song, but it's 8.5 minutes long, kind of like in the middle of the album at a really awkward spot.
Yeah.
And then Children of the Night is like 2 tracks later, and it's 7.5, which 7.5 and 8.5 minute songs are like, this band hasn't really done that before. Anything past like 6.5 or so, like it's kind of new for this band. I just feel like they could have been in better spots on the album. Like right in the middle is a really awkward spot to have them.
Yeah.
For Darkest of Nights, it's a good song. I just feel like its placement is a little weird. But Children of the Night, I don't care about its placement. It's a sick song. Like, it's a song that really hooked me. Like, I feel like the riffs are really catchy. Every time it comes on, I think, oh yeah, this song's really cool. And I enjoyed it consistently. Another thing to mention, the drumming. Very, very nice. Especially the drum fill that starts Beyond the Grave. Like, when I first heard that, like, oh, fuck, that was sick. And it reminded me of Honor Thy Father by Dream Theater that has this sick drum intro. So, That always like stands out whenever it comes on. Just like, oh, that's the fucking sick drum fill. So, you know, I was thinking like really the only kind of issue I had was really just that weird like placement of Darkest of Nights, and maybe the vocals could have a little bit more variety. But yeah, one thing that really kind of like even impressed me even more, and it kind of took me a few days to notice this, is that there is a melody present in multiple songs throughout the album. Like it keeps coming back. It's in the beginning in Masquerade, it's in Mask of Red Death, it's at the start of Children of the Night, and then it's in Overture and in the title track. Like it's something that keeps coming back over and over, and that is a classical technique, having a leitmotif that comes back throughout your composition. So the fact that not only are they heavily influenced by classical through their chord progressions, they're literally taking techniques that were used by classical composers in their entire works and applied it to this album.
Yeah, you know what? You took a lot of words out of my mouth. Like I have notes here about a lot of things that you just talked about. So I might sound like a bit of a repeat record from what TV Fish just said. But yeah, you got to emphasize the classical influence of this band. It's just so prominent, and it's really cool because you ask a lot of people, you know, where did metal come from? Where did metal originate? And most people probably say rhythm and blues. And that's correct. That's not an incorrect answer. But people often forget that a lot of metal is derivative of classical music. And this is the perfect example of that. It's very virtuosic. If you listen to classical artists like Antonio Vivaldi or Dmitri Shostakovich, or any of these guys that make these long epic compositions, you'll hear the parallels. You'll hear the structures and the way that they're arranged and stuff like that, and how bands like this pull from that and, you know, turn it into metal, right? And it's really cool to see that evolution. And this album is just full of stuff like that. And a good example of that is in the title track, Necrophony, song number 12. It's just lots of virtuosic guitar playing. The solo section, for example, it lasts for about a minute, and then it goes back to the main riff groove, and then it goes back to a solo section again. And in total, it's about 2 minutes of just guitar shredding with no vocals, right? And then after that, it finally goes back to, you know, singing part of the song and stuff. And then you got, Storm of Strings, which is about a 3-minute long instrumental. I was hesitant on calling it an instrumental and not an interlude because it's kind of on that precipice of being an interlude. Because if you look at tracks like Masquerade number 1, 2 minutes and 38 seconds, that's like an intro interlude. Then Overture, track number 11, that's 2 minutes and 8 seconds. That's also an instrumental interlude. This is at 3 minutes. So I guess you can call it an instrumental or an interlude. It's probably both.
I feel like it's kind of like both. Because it is an instrumental and it is a fully put together song.
Yeah.
But it does kind of serve the purpose of like kind of guiding you to the next section of the album. I kind of wish it was a little bit later, like maybe a track or two later on.
I think placement's okay personally. But yeah, I think when I think of instrumental, I'm thinking of something that's like 7 or 8 minutes, right? But when I'm thinking of interlude, I'm thinking of something that's 1 or 2 minutes. So it's kind of falling in that hybrid area.
Because it kind of serves the purpose of an interlude, but it doesn't really sound like it is one.
It doesn't. So yeah, it's kind of a hybrid.
Yeah.
But either way, it's still really cool. Still a cool listen. I wish it was longer. That's basically the point I'm making.
It's funny because that song doesn't feel like a 3-minute song. It feels like a 5-minute song just from how much is going on.
Because there's a lot of notes in it.
Yeah.
Right? So when you have basically like all that shredding, just makes it sound longer because there's so many notes you're hearing. So yeah, overall, I thought the album was pretty good. The songs that stood out to me the most were Mask of Red Death, Storm of Strings, obviously, the title track. The rest of them were good songs, but here's my gripe. So my gripe was that I was having trouble finding things that sounded different in the songs, right? And the fact that you said that 4 of the songs use the same melody in certain parts, as a motif, that kind of made me realize maybe that's why. Maybe I kind of felt like a lot of these songs were samey. I went back and listened to the last album as well and thought, you know what, this album holds up. I respect the score I gave it, 7.5. I think that deserves that. This one, I feel like I just through the week listening to it, I was having trouble really finding things to tell you guys, finding things to let you guys know, check out this and this song, check out this and that song. You mentioned a couple that I noticed as well, the drum intro. There's actually a few drum fills that are pretty cool. The guitar work through the whole album is nice. Oh, I get another parroting point, the bass. The bass being prominent on this album is a huge plus side because, again, like TV Fish said, it's sometimes very hard to pick out bass in metal because of how low tuned the guitars are. The bass is very prominent on this album, and it sounds really nice. It's not just, it's like, there's nice bass licks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like Mask of Red Death is a good example. The bass line in this song is just juicy as fuck. So really good. So yeah, the album as a whole is a fun listen. It's good from beginning to end. I'm gonna use the word virtuosic again because that's how I feel. I feel it's very like, just very shreddy, very like, I don't know, highlights this lot of shreddiness. Right,
there is a lot of shredding.
There's a lot of shredding, but it's not like overdone in any way. Like if you listen to like Angry Malmsteen, for example, like that's overdone, and people do like that. That's, you know, there's a core audience for that. So it's not like that. But yeah, the guitars are very busy on here, and maybe that was to a bit of a fault because I feel like maybe it took a little bit away from some variation in song structure, just trying to like shred all over the place, where when I went back to listen to the last album, I feel like there was a little bit more variation in song structure on that album. So yeah, that's my overall thoughts. So
well, let's get to rating this album. I guess I'll start. If I'm gonna make a direct comparison, I do think this album takes a lot of the experience of the last album and adds more onto it. And, you know, I understand that over time maybe this album could start to feel like a bit repetitive, but one thing that I noticed throughout the week when listening to this album is that I was consistently entertained by it. Even though some songs were harder to really find as standout tracks amongst others, I was still enjoying them and enjoying the riffs I was hearing. So even the songs that weren't the best to me were still fun. I wasn't getting bored of those, and the songs I did already like were just awesome songs, and I enjoyed them quite a bit. And I do think that the parallel of having this leitmotif throughout a few of the songs, it's only like it's not like you're constantly hearing it.
It's 4 songs out of 12. It's a third of the album, but
it's still like a bit. But like the fact that they even did that, when I realized that, I'm like, okay, this album is awesome. I'm gonna give it a toe tag. I really enjoyed this album, and I hope you guys do too when it releases.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I think your score is fair, Toe Tag. It's fair for what you said. For me, it kind of went the other way, though. I feel like, you know, you said this is the last album, but built onto that more. I feel like it's taken away for some reason. I feel like the last album had a little bit more creativity in its structure, in its presentation. It might not have been as flashy or as technical, but sometimes those things don't really add to the overall sound for everybody, and I'm one of those people right now. So unfortunately, I didn't quite like it as much as the last album, so my score is not going to be as high, but I do still think it's a pretty good album. Solid. There's no bad songs. There's nothing on here that ruins it by any means. Still a really fun listen. It's going to get a 6.5 for me.
And there you have it, a toe tag for myself and a 6.5 from Vile Self, and that's all we got for you guys today. Remember to look out for this album coming out in August, I believe. If I recall correctly, the 25th.
25th sounds right, yeah.
Is when this album is gonna drop. So let us know what you think of the 3 singles that have been released so far, which are Oathbreaker, Mind of Metal, and Beyond the Grave.
Check them out.
And look forward to the album's release. Anyway, that's all we got for you guys today. I'm TV Fish.
I'm Vile Self.
And see you guys later.